Tithing to TLC. Welcome to Plathville. Thought they weren't going to get one. Of course they are. Oh my gosh.
We're the Plath family.
We're 11 people in the family, mom, dad, and 9 children.
Welcome to Plathville features another one of the families that just completely restrict their kids from the outside world, complete homeschooling, no TV, never even had a soda until they moved out of their parents' house, that sort of thing. And a lot of times people ask, how does TLC keep finding these families? Okay, so they actually go out and specifically search them out. Like Sister Wives, for example, they went to a meeting where they knew there were going to be a bunch of people that were involved in that sort of thing and started talking to everybody to see who they could make a show out of. This show started November 2019 and is set to come back for their 7th season on July 22nd. Now, just between us, this took a long time because I find these people boring as watching paint dry, so it's really hard to get, really hard. So 7 seasons, I mean, I guess that's an accomplishment. This is Kim and Barry, respectively, the leads of the Plath family, who were married for 24 years until announcing that they were getting divorced in 2022. Now, most of this restricted environment that they've created for their kids, like a lot of these people, they kind of acknowledge that it's a trauma response, but they don't quite like connect the cells that it is a trauma response. So didn't want their kids to have sodas, didn't want their kids in the real world, won't even let them go to public school. However, was arrested for DWI in 2022. She was also arrested back in the day for having an open container and acknowledges that there was a lot of substance stuff in her family, and that's where that like trauma response comes in, because instead of like working through that and figuring out ways, it doesn't have to be 0 or 100, you know what I mean? But instead just completely isolated everyone from the outside world with the help of her husband. One of the daughters recently reported, however, that she is getting help, trying to be a better person, working through things like that, but considering Fundy, I'm not sure what that help is going to look like. I hope it is in fact professional. After the divorce, Barry kind of went the other way and did this whole glow up thing, and there were a bunch of videos of him working out, which, oh, thank you. No one asked for that. A quote from the show that kind of encompassed their parenting style, especially around how valuable they think an education is for their daughters, or maybe even their sons, who knows, is about a college that offered a scholarship, right, to one of their daughters. And they thought, what does she need college for? She is learning more than she ever would sitting behind a desk at a college, learning head knowledge. If you're not familiar with that concept, what you know versus what you believe, but it is used in a religious connotation, which I don't know if she's using it exactly correct here, but that's fine. So basically what's being said is that she needs to stay home and build up her biblical knowledge, not her actual real world, gonna help you out there knowledge. We can do both. That is also an option. But enough about the parents. Let's jump over to Ethan and Olivia. Now, there is a lot going on with that one, so I'm kind of just introducing you to people today. Tomorrow, we're going to go into everything that's going on with that controversy, but I just feel like it's important. It needs its own part in Tithing to TLC. Ethan and Olivia, and you'll be seeing a lot about them in the next video, but in a nutshell, if you want to read ahead, you can go look at Olivia's TikTok. There's some recordings on there that are hard to listen to, but very, very interesting and very clear as to who this person is. But what's wild about that, the series actually started with him being really open and, oh, we went and watched Friends and we went to movies in the park and I had a Coca-Cola, even drank a glass of wine. But over the years, you see the family's influence, lack of boundaries, and meddling really kind of change things, along with him going along with it. It's not any, fault is spread. There's an episode where he literally almost goes fisticuffs with his dad for disrespecting his wife's boundaries. And if you ever wonder what side of this I'm on, when you get married, if your family's like going after your partner all the time, you need to stand up for your partner. And if you aren't going to, or your family's more important, then get a divorce and go find someone that's more into that type of dynamic. Because even when she wanted to divorce him, he was stringing things out forever, even though he didn't want to be married to somebody with her belief system. When I started watching this, that's what immediately, whenever I see someone doing the doe-eyed boy giggle routine or the doe-eyed girl, you know what, this is not gender specific, I am immediately suspicious, because it starts there and then not ends here because there's more after that, but goes to this place.
There are roles that a man plays that are different than a woman plays, and roles that a woman plays that are different than a man plays, and that's natural, that's inherent in us. And the whole thing, cooking 3 meals a day, that is one of the only keys to a man's heart. When's the last time you cooked a meal?
The only way to a man's heart is through cooking. I actually know another way. Next child in line is Hosanna, who has not been on the show for personal reasons. However, there's been conflicting statements from different siblings, especially Mariah and Lydia. This is Mariah, we're going to talk about her in a second. But she stayed away from everything. However, is friends with Jill Rodriguez. And if you don't know about the Rodriguez, you need to get over to Fun Day Fridays immediately and go figure that out. Micah Plath, he wanted to be a model. That was kind of his character arc, and he wanted to get out from under this, that sort of thing. But with their values, modeling, not really their favorite thing. However, notably recently, there was a fight at a family wedding, and he almost had his nose ripped off by his brother Isaac. Details that are actually clear and I'm allowed to share publicly to not out anyone is basically, obviously, toxic family, everybody was drinking, brawl breaks out, these two hadn't been getting along for a long time, in a nutshell. Then we get to Mariah, who is an aspiring singer, wild child, family scapegoat, the works, right? Mad beef between these two, and if you look at the color of her hair and listen to this, that makes sense.
I'd rather never had kids than have a kid that ended up being indoctrinated. They could be some blue, fluffy-haired, colored piece of rat.
On top of that, recording tomorrow will go into the remaining siblings, including the one who always seemed to be the most parentified, who is waiting to kiss until her wedding day. That's going to be part of this season, that whole thing. But the recording that you're hearing, the one thing is always the blue hair. We got to go with the blue hair. Do you ever think that people might have blue hair because they like the color blue? Chew on it. That's a conversation for tomorrow. I hope you guys have a good day, and I will see you then.